This is DJ.
And this is Ish.
And this is
Season 6 of
Pero Let Me Tell You.
Just a bit. Or we could be like those, like British people like Anya Taylor-Joy, who she was born in Argentina, but then she grew up in London or in England. So her Spanish is absolutely flawless. But then when she speaks English, she sounds British. So she would be like, "Welcome to Pero Let Me Tell You." Like she would be like.
What I think it's interesting, and I saw this some time ago. Una colombiana. She was speaking como hablando colombiano, right?
Right.
But when she left Colombia, she moved to England, right?
Right.
So when she was speaking in Spanish, it was very familiar because we know a lot
Colombian,
of Colombians,
right?
It seemed very familiar. But then when she spoke English, it was British, and it was such a mind.
It just you couldn't register.
What?
This is weird. I don't get it. I don't understand what's happening here.
With that conundrum, welcome to episode
247
of Pero Let Me Tell You. How is everyone?
I think everyone is doing great. It's Friday. It's Pero Friday. And also, for some of you are maybe looking at us for the first time on video right now. I don't know. We're trying
something out because
so we'll see if this takes.
We're trying something out because ever since we started our podcast 247 episodes ago, people have always told us, like, why don't you do a video podcast? And that's always been something we wanted to do, is to put the podcast on video. But the problem is that we record on fake Fridays, which usually means Thursday, because we try to, our Pero Primos have probably heard this by now. We try to record as close as possible to the actual live date, because if not, our topical podcast will get stale.
We learned our lesson with COVID.
It'll get stale. So that means that it's very hard for us to do a video podcast on a Thursday night and then release it a few hours later. And literally, when we lock ourselves in the studio to do the podcast, it takes a few hours. And, when you hear this on Friday morning, it's only a few hours.
I mean, I've probably got it edited and uploaded by about 2:30 in the morning.
Right.
So yeah.
So for those who start listening to us on 7 in the morning, it's a good morning.
Yes.
Buenos dias.
Oh, some people started their day with Danny and Rebecca. Some people start their day with us.
Wake up. Anyway, so we're kind of testing things out. So, bueno, if you're in Florida, ¿quién se despertó con la alarma a las 4:30 ayer?
Me.
¿Tú te despertaste con la alarma?
Yes, I did. And
I didn't hear shit. I was knocked out.
I don't understand. Oye, porque ese pito.
It was like the sound of an Amber Alert.
Right, because what it is it was the national, remember on TV, this is the emergency broadcast system, blah, 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 if this is only a test. They do that now with the phones as well. But it was at 4:30 in the goddamn morning. And so luckily though, I'm kind of thankful for it in a weird way, because I had fallen asleep on the couch with the TV on and the lights on. So eso me despertó, and I turned off the lights, I turned off the TV. So, it kind of helped a little bit.
Yeah.
But, oh, yeah, it was scary.
My father calls me this morning. He's like, ¿Tú oíste la alarma? And I'm like, ¿Qué alarma tú hablas? I thought he was talking about an Amber Alert. And he's like, ¿Tú oíste la alarma? Hasta en España están hablando de la alarma. And I'm like, why would they be talking about the alarma in Spain? But it woke everybody up except me.
You were dead to the world.
I was.
Kudos to you.
Yeah, and it's funny because
I'm a sound sleeper.
I'm not a heavy sleeper, but somehow
you've had a long week.
So listeners, have you gotten gas? Porque la gasolina está de madre. You got gas?
I finally got gas. Desde domingo, remember that I told you, I'm like, oh yeah, you're gonna have to take me home because I'm running out of gas after the pop-up. So I finally got gas.
Yeah.
I've had so many gas experiences, which sounds weird out of context, this week. Like I told you, on Saturday. So on Saturday was the first time that I think I noticed it without noticing. When we had our pop-up, we had to go fill up the propane tank at BJ's. And, whatever, I noticed that the BJ's, which never happens, was empty. It was empty and it was roped off.
Right, that happened to me too. And I was like, ay, aquí no hay nadie hoy. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even know when I noticed there was nobody at BJ's. I didn't know there was a gas issue yet.
I just thought it was like BJ's.
But
I just thought BJ's didn't have gas.
I drive a Tesla.
So this is also true. So whatever. So they're putting gas, and I hear the attendant who's pumping the gas into the propane.
Se acabó la gasolina.
Well, they're talking like, sí, la gasolina. I'm like, okay, whatever. He's like, sí, porque con la inundación de Fort Lauderdale, tú sabes, they couldn't get it out. It was the flooding. And this is true. It was because of the flooding in the port of Fort Lauderdale. The pumps that have, I think it's 12 pumps that have the gas that gets released into South Florida. They could not get to it because of the water. Obviously, if water gets into the gas, it is useless.
Había una inundación.
So, I love how he was explaining it to el señor, and el señor was like, sí, no, la inundación, da, da, da. But, eventually, all roads lead to communism.
Always.
And he's like, no, pero imagínate, eso está todo controlado, eso es el comunismo. And I'm like, the whiplash this man just did by giving the actual explanation of what happened to just but it's communism.
But the thing is that communism...
It's such a catch-all.
It trumps any
natural disaster,
any type of reasoning,
and natural disaster,
right? Because that man, from what you're telling me, was going on the right path in terms of the explanation why there wasn't any gas.
Correct.
But of course, communism is like.
But fuck logic.
Yeah.
And then the next day on the way again to your house, because we had 2 pop-ups last weekend, thankfully. I'm heading over to your house, and I see that there is a long line of people waiting for gas, which is fine. A lot of the stations were closed and they had the little red things over the pumps. But what I noticed, though, is not just that people were in line for gas and pumping gas. No. This is
llenando los tanques, la bañadera.
This is South Florida. We can't have nice things.
No.
They were all filling up and we're not talking like your average gas tank, the little red one. No. This looked like they were about to go fill up a yacht. Right? And I'm like, guys, this is why we can't have nice things, because yes, we're low on gas, but then you're the fucktard who's going and then you're making us run out of gas more, and then now we're still out of gas, but it's not because we're out of gas, it's because you don't know how to ration. And that even happened on Wednesday when I finally got gas. The guy in front of me literally filled up his tank, and I saw him then open his trunk and pull out 2 the little red things, canisters, and fill them up.
Right.
And I'm like, these are the people, what I find fascinating about these people is they're like, no, pa estar preparado. And here's the thing, because they're so fucking exagerado, I guarantee you they will be the first to go in a zombie apocalypse.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And mira.
Because they won't have any clue how to ration.
So 3 years into COVID or 3 years post-COVID, nobody can yet explain to me why
toilet paper?
There was a toilet paper shortage during COVID. Not anything else, but toilet paper. I mean, the COVID did not give you the runs, right? So why? And then, the thing is that even if you try to have a rational mind about it, it gets to you. Because I remember thinking, if I saw toilet paper, I remember thinking, okay, I need to buy toilet paper.
Right.
Mind you, toilet paper... Of course, it's a necessity, but it's not a necessity because if you don't have toilet
jump in the shower.
Te puedes coger una manguera.
Yeah. I mean, look, right. Or newspaper. I don't know,
There's
something.
Other alternatives. If in Cuba they figure it out, we could figure it out here. But nobody is still 3 years later. I think there is some type of underground bunker with millions of rolls of toilet paper. Because where did the toilet paper go?
It's the Charmin bears.
What's so funny with going with what you're saying about the logic of communism? I actually had a similar story this week at Publix. So at the local Publix here by my house, I was there and the entire milk area section was empty.
Okay.
Not one bottle of milk, the jar of milk, nothing. It was empty. And
thank God you already made the sauces.
And there was a lady who was, again, with her friend, because I feel that these conversations happen in a pair, right?
Well, yeah, otherwise it's a monologue.
Right. It happens in a pair. And she was saying, mira, aquí no hay, se acabó la leche porque hoy en día hay escasez de todo. Los supermercados están vacío. And the guy from Publix comes and he hears her and he goes, señora, el refrigerador de la leche está roto, por eso no tenemos ninguna leche ahí, la tenemos atrás. ¿Tú quieres que te traiga algún tipo? ¿Qué tipo de leche usted quiere que yo te traiga? And she's like, no, olvídate. She was just complaining. Right. She probably wasn't even buying milk.
She's probably lactose intolerant.
But her and her friend were complaining how the supermarket shelves are empty. You know, this whole false narrative and false news that we spoke to Boris Sanchez from CNN about. You know, that just people make up shit. And then she'll go to Facebook and be like, take a picture and be like, mira,
you see?
No hay leche.
El comunismo.
And then people will go and buy.
And that's the thing. And then you perpetuate the problem.
And it was because the freezer was broken.
You perpetuate the problem. Again, I can't say this enough. Like,
So I want to talk about speaking about people doing and saying dumb things and ridiculous things. So
dumb ways to die.
So earlier this week, there's a video that's been going viral or went viral for a couple of weeks ago, but I actually commented about it this week. So it's a video with Kid Fury from The Read. It's a show on Fuse that he says.
Oh yes.
Where I believe her name is Chrissy, Kristen Kid Fury. They're talking and Chrissy's like, "Oh, you're from Florida," and he's like, "No, I'm from Miami." And she's like, "Florida,
Miami's in
Florida, Florida, United States." He's like, "No, I'm from Miami."
Yeah,
right. So they posted that, and I actually commented on it, and I said something along the lines of like, "I'm really happy you corrected her."
Right.
I told her that Miami and Florida
no
are
es lo mismo ni se escribe igual.
Okay. Clearly, this is a joke. This is a joke.
Oh, fucking A.
This is a joke.
What?
It was said in jest.
Clearly.
And all that. So all this week on my personal Instagram, I've been getting bombarded with notifications, right? Because that's a pretty big account. Right. All these people commenting, responding to my comments. And mind you, there were other people who said similar comments.
Right, yeah.
Like, Miami's not really Florida, blah, 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 and all that. But my comment was I guess I was one of the first people to comment or within the first hour
noticeable,
commenting.
Right.
So mine was like up the ladder. Mm-hmm. You have to see, I did get a lot of likes. Like I got over 600 likes of people that liked my comment.
Who understood.
Right. You have to see the comments that I got from people. Do you own a map? Do you even know where Florida's at? Do you know that Miami's part of Florida? You probably failed geography. You probably don't understand geography. And then my personal favorite, the guy who was like, some guy tells me, you're in Florida, buddy, and if you don't like Florida or the United States, you can get out. You could leave.
That escalated quickly.
No. He was the only person I responded to. And he goes, wow, that was such a leap for something that I clearly said in jest. Right? And that was the only comment that I made. But everybody was like, oh, Florida is in Miami's in Florida. You don't know geography. How can you not know that Miami in Florida? And I'm thinking like, okay, people, this was a joke. This was clearly a joke, right? We know this is a joke. How can you not know that this was said in jest?
I mean, you have Twitter.
I was thinking, oh, that's right. It's the internet.
It's the internet.
Oh, where everybody...
It's the internet.
Where the trolls and the people that just want to say something
half of those people were speaking just to speak.
Right.
Because they have to llevar la contraria.
Right.
Like, if you had said Miami is in Florida...
Right.
Most of those people would have come out and been like, it's not the same.
Right.
Just because you had said the opposite. Right.
So, and I will to those people who say that Miami is in Florida.
It's in Florida, but it is not Florida.
Let me elaborate further on what Kid Fury says. Miami may be geographically in Florida, but Miami couldn't be any further away from Florida.
Yeah.
And
we've said it before.
Most people in Miami will very much agree because I don't know about you, but we have nothing in common with Destin, Florida. Two completely different things.
Maybe our love of beaches.
No.
Maybe.
That's the redneck Riviera.
but I'm saying in general.
No, they're on the Gulf. We're on the Atlantic Ocean.
Okay, it's a different level of beach.
Yeah,
okay.
No, totally different. But you know what bothers me is that clearly that was in jest. All these people that were telling me this stuff, like that guy who told me, the guy who told me,
he got on his MAGA trip.
You're in. He didn't say anything political, but of course I knew that it was. Right. The one who told me, if you don't like Florida, if you don't like Florida and you don't like the United States, you could leave. That guy.
Right.
I went to his Instagram. He's just moved to Tampa recently, and he's originally born and raised in Colorado. It's on his profile. And I'm thinking, like, you probably haven't fucking been to Miami.
You haven't been to Orlando.
Right. You haven't even been to, like, the Tri-County southern area of Florida, and you're schooling me on that? Please, por favor.
He probably hasn't even been to Lakeland.
So it's like the internet never fails to just amaze me
at the cesspool
as to the cesspool of humanity. And like, you know, if you don't think that joke is funny, just roll your eyes and keep scrolling.
Right. That's the thing. Like, but again, what is it that I always say about the internet?
Well, what we say,
yes.
Aside from being invented for porn, it gave everybody a voice. The best thing is that it gave everybody a voice.
The worst thing,
actually, that should be our slogan. Yes. The internet. The best thing about it is that it gave everybody a voice. The worst thing about it is that it gave everybody a voice.
Yes. That should be one of our next t-shirts. That should be one of our next t-shirts, straight up.
But, well, I'm glad everybody got gas.
I'm assuming everybody's got gas by now.
So, vieron que mi prima hosted Saturday Night Live.
Your prima hosted Saturday Night Live, and let me tell you something. She pulled Marcelo with her throughout the whole thing.
The skit of her Marcelo was so good.
Okay. Perfect skit. One complaint.
Their names didn't start with Y.
At least her name.
Right.
At least her name should have been like a
No. If her name starts with Y, his name has to start with
That's
Y.
true, because they're siblings.
They're siblings. Those things come in pairs.
That's right.
You're not called Daniel and your sister Unilacy.
That's true. It should have been like Uniel and Uniela, or something like that.
Uniel y Yudelki.
Exactly. That should have been their names. But I understand. It's it's still an American audience. You still have to.
No. But I thought it was spot on, and it's what we always say about how representation matters, because the humor, the way that was written, and again, this is Saturday Night Live. You just don't get a bigger platform than that when it comes to comedy.
Platform.
That's why we say representation matters, because so often we here on our podcast, we complain on how whenever they want to do Latin jokes, it's so badly written and
it's so generic that it's nothing.
It's like, oh, esta fiesta está caliente.
Right.
And it's no Latin person
Christ's
speaks
sakes,
like that. No one.
One of the things that she said she liked to eat was mamoncillo.
Yes, mamoncillo.
When has anybody ever said mamoncillo?
Said, I bet you that in the 50 years that SNL has been on the air, nobody, not even,
But I don't think they've ever said that even on like a novela on Univision. Comiendo
mamoncillo. Anyway, but that's why we always say that representation matters, because here you are, there were two people. I mean, I'm sure that they had a hand in writing that sketch.
For sure, Marcelo, for sure.
Right? And it was spot on accurate, from the way they spoke to their names to what they were describing, what they were eating. That was written by somebody who is Cuban, right? The same way that if it would have been about somebody who's Colombian or somebody who's Peruvian or whatever. That's why representation matters, because it's those nuances that make something authentic and make something accurate. And so often, whenever it comes down to specifically comedy with Latin people, it's totally wrong. It's not written correctly. It's not written authentically. And then it ends up being this almost fiction, because nobody speaks like that. Nobody says "Vamos a la fiesta caliente."
It's like when we interviewed Tony Plana. He was talking about how when they initially started on Ugly Betty, they had not settled on the ethnicity of the family. It still had not been established. But Tony's Cuban, Ana Ortiz is Puerto Rican descent, and America Ferrera is, I want to say, is it Nicaraguan or Salvadoreña?
I think it's Nicaraguan.
So Central American, let's say it. And he's like, they didn't know. So here we were trying to be Hispanic, and instead of being, Cuban, Venezuelan, whatever, he's like, we were just, we were genericans.
Right.
It's like, so we just had to play this down the middle until they gave us a culture to.
And what did they finally?
I believe that they finally wound up being Mexican, and I say that just because there was a whole plot line there about him being in the country illegally and all that. So I do want to say I think it was Mexican family that they settled on, but to your point, like until they did that, they were kind of like, okay, well, we're Latino, but we can't talk about a food we love because we don't know what the background is.
I mean, I guess a safe one is frijole.
That's arroz.
Arroz.
Flan. Yeah.
Flan is big in a lot of... Mexicans have a really good flan.
Yeah, really do. It's very creamy.
But then so do Cubans and even Puerto Ricans. And,
Yeah.
that comes from crema catalana, which is from Spain. But there's a few Latin American countries that claim flan. I'm saying the more flan, the merrier.
I mean, everybody should claim flan.
I'm
not going to be sad about it.
Let's make flan the international dessert.
Ooh. And you can have it with international coffee.
I mean, I've said this many times. I consider myself, a foodie. A lot of people consider themselves a foodie nowadays.
Yeah, that's true.
But I consider myself a foodie. Heck, I cook. I'm all about flavor and flavor palettes and all that stuff.
Oh, you're only the chef of Pin Pan Pollo.
Only that. There is nothing in this world to eat, nothing that I prefer than a good cheese flan.
Nice and thick.
Nothing. There's nothing.
Yep.
It could be the greatest cut of meat. It could be whatever. Nothing over un flan. It just makes me complete. It makes, flan makes me feel bad about mortality. Because one day I'm not going to be here and I'm not going to be able to have flan. I often think about that. I'm like, oh man, I'm not going to be able to have flan. And if reincarnation exists and I come back as like another ethnicity, maybe it's an ethnicity in a part of the world that doesn't eat flan.
What if you come back lactose intolerant?
I don't care. I will still have flan.
Okay.
It's worth the trip to the bathroom.
Okay, fair enough. All right, that's right.
Nothing. There's nothing that I prefer more than flan.
You think about flan with mortality?
I think about mortality
in terms of enjoyment of
mortality and flan, because I do. I think that there will be a day that I'm
that's not
that I'm not going to be here and I'm not going to be able to have flan.
Oh, but if there's an afterlife, you're going to be able to have all the flan you want.
Yeah, but part about having flan is knowing that it's bad for you. And you're like, I can't have any more, but I am. You don't win. You don't win in this argument.
It's a lose-lose. It's a lose-lose. There are no winners in the argument of flan mortality.
Mortality and flan.
Yes,
that is my thesis. Hi, my dissertation is going to be about mortality and flan.
I think that the T-shirt should just be flan with angel wings on it.
Oh man.
A little halo.
But you know what's great about you know that my love for flan is real because you have seen me have different types of flans.
Yeah.
And you've seen the face. It's like something comes over me. Like and I know a lot of people like flan, so I'm not the only person that likes flan. But for me, it's like
you
remember when I tried a specific type of flan? A few years back from some people.
Yes.
That when I first tried it, do you remember? I tried it for the first time with you.
Yes, you did.
That I was like, I can't speak. I was mute for like 5 minutes.
It was almost like I could just see the whites of your eyes. Like you had just gone into this orgasmic trance of custard.
Brought to you by flan.
Yes.
Which is really, and you know what's funny? I don't know how to make flan.
Really?
I've never made flan before.
You've never wanted to, or
you know what? I think
it's not hard.
I think there's a part of me because I think that when you cook something, you lose a little bit of like te repunta un poco, hence pin pan pollo.
Yeah.
I love our chicken wings and I love our business.
We rarely eat the wings anymore.
I haven't had that in ages because when you cook something, you're so involved in it that you lose a little bit of...
You no longer really view it as food for enjoyment.
Right.
Yeah.
That I'm like, I don't need to touch that. Okay, let's move right along from flan because it's going to make me want some flan.
Yeah, and we don't have flan. It's too late to go buy flan at the hora. Ay, Dios mío. All right. So actually, I wanted to talk about something that we were able to go see last Friday.
I'm sorry. Before we talk about,
I'm like, I know you're not thinking about what I'm talking about because you're like laughing. I was just
thinking now que falta la gasolina. It was what a conundrum, or what an irony that the week that there's no gasolina was like on the heels of Gasolina by Daddy Yankee being inducted into the Library of Congress. It was?
Coño, I didn't know that.
The first and only reggaeton song.
Congrats, Daddy Yankee.
Yeah. Right. You didn't know that?
I didn't know that. I didn't hear about that.
A few songs actually made it to the registry. That was one of them. The other one was that, we would know, Like a Virgin.
Okay.
And All I Want for Christmas Is You.
Okay, well, listen, it's an accomplishment. I know. Listen, you know what? Take it.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Move right along.
Take it. It's the Library of Congress, all right? Take it.
Let's move right along.
So, sorry. So, we got the immense, great opportunity to go see the play, The Walls Have Ears, at the Westchester Cultural Arts Center, which is the new little art center, performance art center there in front of Tropical Park. Do you know that I have not stopped thinking about that play since we saw it?
It was intense.
I have not stopped thinking about it.
Yeah, it was.
For those of you who don't know, it's you listened to the interview with Robbie and Gabriel. It's a play about two brothers in a Cuban jail, and somehow it gets picked up, and there's a radio DJ here in, I'm assuming, Miami, and it was so intense because it's as they said, it's a theater in the round, but I went in with a different expectation of theater in the round from what they had explained to what it actually was.
Yeah.
I just thought it was like
when you go on a concert in the round.
Right, and it's in the middle and everybody sits and that's it.
No.
No. It is almost like immersive, and again, that's why it's called The Walls Have Ears. We are acting as the walls. The scenes that were happening literally right next to us, like right next to Jose.
Yeah, literally 3 feet away from us.
Were so intense. And I forget his name now, but el muchachito who played the prisoner.
Yeah.
What an intense performance.
It was. What
an intense performance. That boy has to have bruises.
I can't stress it enough to our listeners. If you're in Miami, I think at the time this drops,
this weekend is the last weekend
that they're going to do it in English, and then they're going to take, I think, a few days off, and then they're going to do 3 weeks in Spanish. I posted on our Instagram. I kind of want to go see it in Spanish. I can't stress enough how important it is to watch this play, because there's a lot of things that are written about the Cuban Revolution. There's a lot of content about the Cuban Revolution. But when you finish watching this, and it's only 90 minutes and it's one act.
Yeah, and it flies.
When you finish watching it, you feel like you just witnessed something. I
felt exhausted.
You don't get out of, like you usually get out of like a performance or a play, kind of like, oh, that was good, that was well acted, that great performance. This is different. You feel like you just like witnessed something very heavy, very dark, and it really stays inside of you. It's not the type of play that you go see and then after it's like, oh, let's go party.
Let's go to Denny's.
Because it really changes your mood. And I think that if this play would have been performed in a more conventional setting of like
an end stage
and a conventional setup for a theater, I think it still would have been good, but the impact, I think, is that it's so intimate and the actors are almost on like touching you.
Well, there are times where they're walking in from behind you, and
that you feel like you really do feel you're a part of that story. And we our hats off to
Robbie and Gabriel.
Yeah, because it was. I mean, I can't stress it enough. People to go watch it. I really want my parents to go watch it in Spanish.
You're going to take your parents?
I am going to get tickets for them because I feel they need to watch it. It's.
I'm not a fan of these words, but I would say. For the purposes of this, trigger warning to your parents, your father specifically.
Yeah, no, I told him about it. And we were actually talking to Robbie after the play, and he even told us that there had been a few people in some dates that have walked out because they lived through the revolution. So this was very triggering to them. So it's very intense. But aside from being important and relevant, it's supporting local theater. So,
which is also very important and relevant.
A lot of people, that's actually something that I was discussing with my father the other day, because my father is one of these people that's like, oh, en Miami no hay cultura. And he's like, en cualquier país, en los países latinoamericanos y en Europa hay mucha cultura. And I'm like, well, when was the last time you went to the theater?
Right.
Yeah. So
Miami, the thing with Miami is that Miami has hidden culture, I would say, compared to like a New York or even a Chicago. I think those are cities that have embraced the badge of, we have a theater, come to the theater, you're going to see a show. Whereas here, it's something we have, but because, for better or worse, we are predominantly a tourist city, and it does focus on, the beach area. It's about partying and drinking. I mean, a big part of the Miami culture revolves around that to an extent.
Right, but you can make that argument about New York as well.
Right, but New York has decided to embrace
obviously
the theater
New York
culture,
New York is
right.
the
epicenter,
the epicenter of theater, clearly, obviously. But there's other cities. Chicago has a very huge theater scene.
But again, they've embraced it. I don't think Miami has embraced it.
But it's there because we have a huge civic and performing arts center that God knows took forever to build. But it is there. It is there. But and there's people that are very into theater here, but then there's people that are, no hay nada que hacer. I'm like, actually, there is.
But you have to seek it out.
You have to
It's
seek it out.
not going to come to your house and knock on the door.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
Right? Hi, I'm the theater. Would you like to come? Tickets available now. Oye, mi gente, Ish here. Let's face it, sometimes we need a little energy boost to focus during the day, pero want to avoid those energy drinks with who knows what in them. Bueno, let's talk about the sponsor of today's podcast, Neuro Gum and Mints. Developed by former athletes who don't want to take supplements or energy drinks when they're studying, training, or going out, these gum and mints were endlessly lab tested with thoughtfully curated natural ingredients to create 3 different products. There's Calm and Clarity with vitamin D3 to optimize clarity of mind, or Health and Vitality, which is infused with immune boosting vitamins to help strengthen your body. Now, y'all know I have a full-time job, co-host, and produce this podcast, not to mention help run wing pop-ups. So I am all about the energy and focus mints right now. And let me tell you, I am definitely feeling those B vitamins pushing my mental endurance so I can focus on everything I need to get done each week. So it's better than Calm, Focus, Energy, and Vitality. Getting them at a discount. Visit tryneurogum.com/pero to get up to 20% off your purchase of Neuro Gum or Mints. That's right. Head to tryneurogum.com/pero and get up to 20% off your purchase today so you can have a little more focus and energy tomorrow.
Oye, so switching things up a little bit to a more controversial topic. Viste que esta semana Dominion, the company that does the whole voting machines, and Fox News settled out of court. And they settled out of court for almost $800 million.
Wow.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's interesting that they settled right before the thing was literally the case was about to start. Like, it was supposed to start Monday and then it got postponed to Tuesday, right? And then now the settlement. I think it's very telling. I am also of the mind, I'm wrong, but I always feel that whenever somebody settles, there's a reason.
You don't say.
And no. But I'm saying in general, no, because sometimes people are like, well, they settled because they don't want to go through the hassle of a court case. And I'm like, no. If you settled, it's because you looked at the facts presented and you're like, you know what?
There's two.
You know what? I don't want to either. I don't want to go through the hassle, or I don't want to deal with the damage it's going to do because there's something there that's damning.
I understand what you're saying, and there is some truth to that.
Because if you're innocent,
a lot of yes, but a lot of times, it obviously depends. There's a lot of things involved. It depends on the case. It depends on the evidence, because sometimes you may not be guilty of something, but the evidence may be damning, or you don't have a lot of alibi or a lot of evidence to counter what they allegedly have against you. And many times it's like go away money. Like, here you go. Like, you won $10 million. Here you go. Go ahead. No jodas más. You know, you won 10 million. Here's 5. No jodas tanto. So sometimes, especially if you're a public figure and all that, it's sometimes worth a little bit more, strategically but it does because you know what, legal fees are a thing, and I know that you want to clear your name, but going through a courtroom, going through a trial does cost, and there's been a lot of celebrities that have been dragged through the mud.
All right, but in this case, we're talking about a multi-billion dollar
but where I was going with that here, even though they settled, it was still almost $800 million.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, the reason why they settled is very easily. There were people who were going to testify under oath about certain things, and we're talking about people in Fox News, like Rupert Murdoch and all these other anchors. There are people who were going to testify under oath that worked for Fox News that either were going to perjure themselves or they had to tell the truth. And if they told the truth, which they had to tell the truth, they were going to say that they knew that the information that they were spreading on their news station was false regarding the election being stolen. And the problem is that you have a behemoth like Rupert Murdoch, and Rupert Murdoch, for whatever you may think of him, was not going to perjure himself. Right? You're talking about...
He's not an idiot.
You're talking about the biggest fish in the ocean, right? He was not going to perjure himself, right? So, how much money do you want? You want 800? You'll take $800 million. Here you go. I didn't perjure myself, and I didn't put myself in the stand.
That's what he had left over after the divorce from Jerry Hall.
The evidence that was leaked, and the evidence that they show that they had, and obviously there was probably a ton of evidence.
Yeah, but it was already showed a preponderance.
It already showed. What a great word! It already showed. By preponderance of the evidence, although here was
my Law and Order degree coming out, baby.
It showed that they were spreading lies and that there was no evidence of voter fraud, and yet they were putting on their network that there was, right? And there's emails and there's texts and there's voicemails from different people within the organization of Fox News saying that there wasn't any voter fraud, and some people were saying stop it. Right.
And they were like, nope, this is what the people want.
Evidence was presented. But one thing is for evidence to come out, and another thing is for you to take this. One thing is for there to be an email, like that whole email that came out of Tucker Carlson saying he hated Donald Trump.
Right. He can't wait to stop covering him.
That he can fucking stand him. One thing is for there to be an email or a voicemail or whatever that you said something or you did something. And another thing is for you to take the stand, right?
Right.
And under oath, say either, again, perjure yourself or say the truth. Right.
Now it's a legal document.
And the truth here was what everybody knew. That Fox News, for a lot of things, but specifically over the 2020 election, was spreading news that was false and was saying that the election was stolen and putting in doubt the integrity of the 2020 election when they knew damn well that the election was there wasn't an issue with the election, and there wasn't any widespread voter fraud that would have changed the results of the election. They knew this. They knew it within the organization. The anchors knew it. Everybody knew it. And yet, they put that out there for ratings.
Right, because they knew that's what their audience wanted.
Yeah. It's very easy from the outside to say what should or should have happened. Right. If I would have been counsel for Dominion, I would have said, mira, we'll take 800 million, we'll take 500 million, we'll take whatever. But you have to retract everything that you said about us. And you have to go out and say this.
Could they have made part of the settlement that, I don't know, you're going to air a live retraction by Tucker Carlson 9 p.m. I'm saying that could have been terms of the settlement.
Yeah, a settlement is a settlement. You could ask for whatever you want in a settlement, and that's what they should have done. But again, who knows what happened behind closed doors, and who knows what occurred on there. But I think though what it is telling is, and even though I have certain issues about this being settled for $800 million, I think they should have gone all the way. I think they should have gone all the way.
What was the original ask?
It was like $1.5 billion. Right? That's a lot. It's a lot. Well, this is almost $1 billion.
No, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. This is a lot of money. And I think they should have gone all the way. And whoever wants to perjure themselves, let them perjure themselves, right? But
and
again,
add that to the bill.
Again, it's very easy from the outside saying what they should or should have done.
Right.
But the point is that even though it didn't get to trial, and Rupert Murdoch and certain people in Fox News did not perjure themselves, I think that the effect of this trial is that you do know now that you are going to be held responsible, because this trial went pretty far. I mean, well, it went pretty far in terms of the legal proceedings, and they were about to start the actual examination and under oath statements, because all these people, a lot of people were already deposed and things like that. So
that's where we learned most of the initial information.
I think that it's important to media outlets to be like, you can't do this.
You're going to be held your feet to the fire.
You can't do this. So I think that it did set a sort of a precedent, although I would have liked to have seen them go all the way, but it did set enough of a precedent that,
Do you think, aside from setting the precedent, and again, people have short memories, even corporations, setting a precedent with the news organizations, hand slapped, they'll probably be on their best behavior for the next 10, 20 years or so until they forget, right? Or they change
10, 20 years.
Or they change whomever's at the helm. I'm giving them credit. Do you think, because this has been covered, this is news coverage, it's not something that was under the wire, it's not something, it's not like a pop culture moment, if you will. Do you think that this will have any standing on anybody who believes that what they said?
No.
You don't think so? Even though they have essentially come out and been shown that they were lying?
No, because look,
do you think it would have changed it if it had gone to trial?
No.
Like if they had been found guilty?
No. Look, you have to remember, you have to take things into context. You have to remember that, and this is something that I posted about, I forget if I posted it on my personal Instagram or I posted it on Pero Let Me Tell You's Instagram. After the 2020 election, when all these claims were being made, I went online on our Instagram and I said, you know what? Let Donald Trump sue everybody. Let him sue every state, every Department of Elections. Let them sue them, because...
And they were all tossed out.
Because when you sue something, you have to provide, during discovery, demonstrable evidence.
Right.
So fraud has to be pled with particularity. So
what does that mean?
Particularity means that you have to show when, what, when, the where.
Okay.
Like
the 5 W's.
You have to show the smoking gun. You have to show, okay, so-and-so did so-and-so at this time. I saw it. This was a fraud. This is the type of fraud that they were doing. Here is the fraud that is pled with particularity.
Okay.
Right? You have to be very specific about it. You can be vague.
So you can't just show up and be like, they lied.
Right. You just can't.
Okay.
You just can be, well, I think that, no. You have to see, in the case of voter fraud, you have to say, I saw somebody get 20,000 ballots. I saw them on Tuesday, November 5th. Put them in the trash at 7:45 p.m. I saw them burning it at this location at this time. And
so to that level.
Right.
Even if it's approximation.
Fraud has to be pled with particularity. So you just can't be like vague and be like, well, I think no, it has to. Okay. So that's why I said, when this originally happened, let Donald Trump sue all these states and all these Department of Elections, because when he sues them, they have to go through a discovery process. And when they go through the discovery process, they're going to have to show evidence of voter fraud and widespread voter fraud, because always, in every single election since the beginning of time, there's always been like 0.0001 voter fraud. There's always that one dead person that votes, right? But it's never been something that has been widespread, that has actually
10,000 people,
that has actually influenced an election, right? So let them go to court. I said it over and over again. Let Donald Trump sue every secretary, every Department of Elections, and let them show the evidence that they say that they have. The evidence that they say that they have, that there was widespread voter fraud to the point that the election was compromised and he would have won. Right? That didn't happen. And all the cases were tossed out. I think it was 60-some cases were tossed out. Many of them tossed out by federal judges that he appointed. Right? Because if there isn't any demonstrable evidence showing voter fraud, right, your case is going to be tossed out. That is Civil Procedure 101.
And that's across the board.
And this happened to every single case. Every single case was tossed out. You have election officials in many of these states, in Georgia, in Arizona, many of them who are Republicans, certifying the election, saying, hey, I didn't find any voter fraud that you're talking about. Yet all of this has been presented, and there's still people who believe there's voter fraud. These are the same type of people that believe that 9/11 was an inside job. Like these
you're not going to convince them.
These are things you're not going to convince them, and you could show them all the evidence in the world showing otherwise. They've made up their mind, and they have chosen not to believe that. And you know what? What's the saying? You could lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Mm-hmm.
This is something similar. You can show them all the evidence. Well, them not show any evidence that there was voter fraud, right. And they're still going to believe it because they believe it. It's the narrative. It's the narrative that they have built up in their mind, and absolutely nobody is going to tell them otherwise. You know, and look, that type of behavior is tale as old as time because you have to take things in context. You know, this was an election. You know, there's been people that were Branch Davidians that believed David Koresh and believed every single word he was saying, and they went down with him. There have been people who have followed other people and followed other big lies. I mean, this is something that has... I think it's part of human nature that there's always people that fall for these lies,
and it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter what the evidence says or whatever. They fall for it, and nobody's going to tell them otherwise. And that's something that has always existed. It's just that this happened, you know, over an election, a presidential election, with a lot of media coverage, a lot of social media. So it was, you know, very obviously big.
I think there's also an element of people, if and I'll use the example of you and I actually, you know, with Bill Cosby, which I know is different, but go with me. When the allegations first came up, you know, Bill Cosby, all the sexual abuse allegations, you know, you and I were kind of like, well, but maybe it wasn't like that. You know, it was the 70s. Everybody was taking you know, we kind of were like, because we didn't want to believe it, right?
Yeah.
But then in the face of, you know, case number 12, number 15, number 20, we kind of had to make our peace with that, right?
But even with the first initial cases, right? And the Bill Cosby one, it's something very, very different, but very similar in a way.
Right.
With the Bill Cosby one, when like even the first handful of allegations came out, why didn't we want to believe it?
Because it was Bill Cosby.
Because we were in denial.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. And so for these people who, in the face of all this evidence, you know, with Dominion and all this other stuff, are still saying, no, it's no, but it's true. It's true. It's true. In the back of my mind, I always wonder, like, if they're holding on to something because in their mind, if they admit that this thing that they held on to a belief so firmly is not true, then they would have to re-examine so many other things and beliefs that they hold dear that they can't face that.
I think it's part of that, but I think the
and so it's easier to keep going down the road than self-examine.
The big lie is that you know, that goes along with the whole narrative of Trump and that time and the 2016 election and everything that is in. Embodies Trump and the MAGA movement, that all feeds to that narrative, right? And that's a narrative that they had bought those goods a long time ago. So you're not going to return the goods now.
Right, but that's what I mean, because if you return the goods, you have to take a step back and you have to really stop and think
realize
about
that everything else.
Right, you have to think about everything else.
Right, because it's not like everything was pristine and then this happened.
This is the one thing, right?
No, everything else was built upon lies, and it was built about
that's what I'm saying.
Real fake news, and it was built.
I think that's what it comes down to, though.
It was all built on lies, and it was all built on gaslighting, and it was all built on exaggerations, and most importantly, fear mongering.
Right.
You know, we've talked about this at length. One of the things that he very successfully did was fear mongering. He put fear into people, those gays, those trans people, those immigrants,
the Mexicans.
You know, the Mexicans. It was fear mongering after fear mongering, and that again, that's why history is so important to understand and know and be a student of history, because every single time it doesn't fail. Every single time that there has been a disaster in humanity, whether it's genocide, whether it's a Holocaust, whether it's a war, whether it's politicians, you know, lying to people, it's always based on fear mongering.
Yeah.
What did Hitler do? And I'm not comparing Donald Trump to Hitler.
Let's be very clear.
in terms of what he spoke to, the approach he had to people at that time, oh, those Jews are going to come and get your jobs, and those Jews, are the reason for this and the reason for that, and we need a stronger Germany, and we need a stronger what is it? I can never say the word Aryan race, and blah 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 blah, because they're it was fear mongering, and then people fall for it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's, again, it's tale as old as time. But to go back to the Bill Cosby thing, because I think that's a great example. When the first handful of people came out, as I said, we didn't want to believe it. But we didn't want to believe it because we were in denial. Okay, we
had invested in Bill Cosby.
As reasonable people,
Fair enough.
After a certain number, we're like, okay, wait, hold on.
Yeah. One or two.
Wait,
30,
hold on.
Like,
aquí yo huelo
gato encerrado,
right?
Yeah.
But why was it? Because we were able to see for ourselves and correct ourselves and say, okay, I was in denial because it's Bill Cosby. I grew up on the man. He has this image. How can Bill Cosby do this? I don't want to believe it.
But we also were willing to admit we were wrong.
We were willing to admit we were wrong. But from the very beginning, we were wrong. We just were able to admit it. But it wasn't a situation that, like, okay, the first couple of people that accused Bill Cosby were lying. Right. It was a situation that we were the ones that we didn't want to believe it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We were trying to think like, well, maybe it was this.
That Dr. Huxtable would do that.
Right.
Right. And this is the same with that. These people aren't going to change their minds after this. It's like, they're already in the mud. They bought that. They're not gonna go back and be like, well, I've had a change of heart, whatever. But if they do,
listen,
and as I've always told people, this is not about if you were into Donald Trump and you because I've talked about this before here as a conservative in a conservative agenda. Looking at what conservative agendas are, he actually had a pretty successful conservative agenda. I mean, I am not a conservative, so I'm going to say it was fuckery. But in terms of conservative policies, he actually was pretty successful. So I could understand how there's people in terms of policy driven may have liked or agreed with a lot of the policies that he that happened under his watch or his administration. Although, again, that's not something that'd be like, baya, baya, But the point is that, so many people fell for that. And in order for you to say, okay, as you said, okay, this is not what I expected, or he fucked up, is admitting that all of this was based on lies. And as I always tell people, look, this is not about you coming to the other side and saying, I'm now a liberal and I'm not a Democrat and I love Joe Biden. No, you don't have to be a liberal. You don't have to be a Democrat. You don't even have to like Joe Biden. You can think Joe Biden is like the worst president ever. Right. It's not about that. It's not. You don't need to do that. But it's about seeing like, oh yeah, this guy y todo camino con este tipo was tremendo,
tremendo paquete.
Tremendo paquete to quote it lightly.
To quote it. to say it how our people would say it.
And and Tremendo Paquete is a James Bond movie.
This is true.
Que paquete.
Although, you know what? Before 2016, we would have said all of that administration was probably Tremendo Paquete.
Yeah, but, they're looking for a sequel, so,
No. Sequels tend to be bigger.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
No. Bigger, faster, stronger, more expensive.
No. I don't need that in my life. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Are we thirsty?
We're thirsty. I mean, I'm thirsty. I don't know if you're thirsty. You look a little parched.
Yeah.
You look a little parched. I think it's because you slept so well during the alarma. That that you're like, you're a little bit more hydration.
I need a little more hydration. But you could go first.
All right. So my last soda, I'm actually just going to keep it very, very, very quick. I'm just going to kind of circle back and give my last soda to The Walls Have Ears.
Yes.
Again,
I'll give my last soda to The Walls of Ears as well.
Yeah. I said it earlier and I will say it again. That play has stayed with me. I have not stopped thinking about it. 3 days later, I texted Robbie and I was like, oh yeah, I just want you to know that I am still thinking about your play. It is burrowed its way into me.
Job well done.
Yeah,
you traumatized us.
And I will say, if you're listening to this on 21st of April, you can actually, if there's still tickets available for tonight, the 21st, 22nd, 23rd in English. Jose and I were talking and saying we would like to go see it in Spanish. Because I think that as impactful as it was in English, I think especially for us, to hear it in Spanish with the Cuban accent and the Cuban, and the emotion behind it, I think as heart-wrenching as it was, I mean, talk about like a glutton for punishment. As heart-wrenching as it was, I think it will ratchet it up to the next I mean this in the nicest way possible, Robbie, unbearable emotionally.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I mean? Like you're walking in, you're setting yourself up for just to walk out of there like,
yeah,
just drained. So we may go watch it again in Spanish, but go see it. I can't stress it enough. It's
when I left, I was like, I think I need to be alone by myself. I mean, I know we're not doing a great job by telling people that, but that's how impactful it is.
But it's you know what? We are doing a great job because it's impactful, damn it, and it's an important story that needs to be told. And again, I give kudos to everybody, and it is a completely different cast in Spanish.
Yeah.
So it'll be a different show, not just in language.
So Robbie and the play get double sodas.
Yes, they get double sodas. And let me tell you,
you know
what?
And after doing that performance,
oh my God,
they need
a truck
of sodas.
Yeah, yeah. Because again,
they have to be exhausted.
Oh yeah, they throw that kid around.
Yeah.
Like to the point where again we were sitting right next to him, and I was like, no, ahorita he's gonna fall on our lap.
Yeah.
Because los tirones que le daba Robbie, it was a little intense.
Yeah, and he didn't have anything to drink.
No, they didn't even give him the milk.
Because, for example, the Madre de la Revolución and the
girl, she had a cup.
Yeah, they had a cup there, but that went with the set. Right. But this kid, no. I think it's, the method acting.
It has to be method acting because they are on stage the entire time. And that boy, that man, like...
you could tell he's in character.
He's in character. He never broke character for the entire 90 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is not easy. So, yeah, Walls Have Ears.
So, everybody, we hope you get gas. Go watch The Walls Have Ears. We hope
go get gas so you can go see The Walls Have Ears
at the Westchester Cultural Center. Right. Anyway, we hope you listen, laughed, and learn. And as always, remember to grab your pastelito, your croqueta, and your cafecito. And thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Have a great week.
All right, cuídense, mi gente. Bye. Pero Let Me Tell You is co-hosted by Darian Borges and Ismaeliano, produced by Ismaeliano, and our theme, Pero Let Me Tell You Freestyle, is composed by Michael Angelo Lomlaplex, the official gay guy. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes.